Okay.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Mystic Mavens. Yet another Sunday that we are meeting and greeting each of you. We're excited to be here today. As always, I'm Joanna White, if you haven't tuned in before, known as the Midlife Resuscitator, and I am revolutionizing healthcare. And when you think of healthcare, what do you think of? A lot of people think of doctors and things like that. Well, it's not. And we'll be talking about some of those things that is our health and through our vitality and our magic today. So your health is your magic. And Kathy's going to go a little deep into that today, your vitality and magic. I'm just so excited to hear because she has so much wisdom to give each and every one of us. And I'm telling you, just wait for the nuggets. But that's enough about me. Hope everyone enjoyed the show today, and welcome to Carol.
Thanks, Joanna. I'm so excited to be here. Hopefully everybody's changed their time and are joining us this morning and or this afternoon, 1:30 Eastern time. I'm Carol Pilkington, and I'm a transformational spiritual counselor and teacher, and I work with those that are in high anxiety and stress and are experiencing grief and loss, usually between the ages of 26 and late 30s or so, and that are going through some kind of transition into their 40s. And we are looking forward to a fantastic show. Take us away, Kathy.
Actually, Miss Claudia, do you want to introduce yourself?
Dive in.
That's okay. Hello, everybody. I'm Claudia Rocafort, and thank you, Kathy. I am a certified life coach and a spiritual facilitator, and I work with people on heart-centered oneness meditations for healing. So, Kathy, let's talk today about what vitality is and how do we feel our best.
Yeah, so thank you. I'm Kathy Basel, and my company I call the Vitality Code. I live here in Denver, and I am a transformational life coach, and I do energy healing because I believe that is essential and one of the missing pieces for us to find our true vitality. I love this group because we all come with such amazingly different backgrounds, but we've all come to some of these basic like spiritual truths that really allow us to plug into consciousness that allows us to elevate in our level of vitality. So just a quick background on my storyline, at least that brought me to the Vitality Code and my desire to bring this to the world. It happened for me when my mom had a stroke. And she had always been the pinup girl on how to live agelessly and alive. And we lived in Naples. She had a low stress life, beautiful job at a resort down there, and life was pretty good until she had a stroke very unexpectedly. She had just gotten a clean bill of health 2 weeks before from her doctor, and unexpectedly there was an occlusion that brought her to have a stroke. Lost the left side of her body, and it was a long and arduous process going through the medical world, if you will. It's not necessarily a good place to go if you're looking to become well again. What I recognize is that it became like a full-time job going from one specialist to the next. Each one of them looking at their individual body part. You got the neurologist and the urologist and all these different ologists, each looking at a segment of her as a human. And inside, this was quite some time ago. So inside it was before I knew what I know now. And the little voice was saying, isn't anybody looking at the whole picture here? Like, is there a quarterback for this program here? And there just wasn't. And so I started to question, like, what more is underneath the recurring problems. So literally she was not able to get around well, so she stopped drinking and she would get repeated kidney infections. So the medical world oftentimes likes to give you pills so that it was stronger antibiotics. So each visit, a stronger and stronger antibiotic until they killed her immune system, and she was in the hospital, got MRSA, and passed away. And it was infuriating, the journey and some of the conversations that I had with doctors along the way, advocating, just asking questions of what more is there that we can do. And one day a doctor, I'll never forget, looked me in the eyes and said, "Face it, your mom just has chronic disease." And I was blown away that that could come out of his mouth. But to one extent or another, I believe we all are living with a certain level of chronic condition, and it's of our own choosing. So it really became that the passing of my mom became the fuel to find, I know at the depths of my being that we are not here to just find health. So our healthcare world wants to get us where there's no disease. And that's just like, to me, a mediocre goal. We're here to thrive. We're here to live with full vitality and to flourish and to have deep connection and explore and live joyfully in our days and have abundance. And so I recognize that oftentimes the goals that we set for ourselves, we're following the sheep, if you will, and a mediocre goal. A lot of people are kind of stuck living a life that's at a 60%. And to me, that's just not enough. So it's fascinating that we are enculturated into a society where that's just okay. And to me, the things that have always been important were those things that bring us fully alive. And so that's kind of the conversation today. Vitality to me, I then, my first stop in my exploration was to become a holistic wellness coach, which was a beautiful beginning because it took a holistic view of us as beings. So not just like my mom's condition, looking at the physical aspects. When we think about physical, we're often thinking in terms of how we're eating and how we're moving. And trust me, there's miracles that can be had in how we nourish ourselves with the food that we consciously choose to take into our body, because fuel, alive foods bring us fully alive. So we want to concentrate on that movement. I mean, we're here to move and to create and express. So we need that element. But as we begin to flesh out more aspects of this mind, body, spirit being that we are, the mental aspects are so important to us. And in a medical journey, you might be thinking about the positive attitude. How is it that we're cultivating those positive aspects of our lives? We want to be elevating in our consciousness. And so how do you cultivate the thoughts and the emotions that are of a higher vibration, so that our bodies are always listening? And when they're cultivating in an environment that is full of uplifted or elevated emotions, the body is going to naturally come into homeostasis with that. There's a resonance. We think we're so physical here, but we're actually more space. When you begin to look at the cells and the atoms in the cells, there's so much more space in there than there is matter. And so energy healing was the next stop for me after I began to look at this. And I recognized that in addition to matter, we're wave, and there's energy that is here to pulse through our beings. And so as we go around the circle of the pieces that make us up, yes, that mental emotional aspect is so important for us to recognize. How are the occlusions? My mom had occlusion in her throat. We have occlusions of how the energy is flowing in our life. And to me, as we go and continue that circle, what is it that you're doing to elevate that soulfulness, that unique design of who you came here to be, plugging into your purpose, your unique design? And again, our society here it's almost like a mediocrity kind of a desire. Like there's a gravity that holds us to a median line of just being normal or keeping up with the Joneses or just comparing ourselves to people around us. But for us to come into our soul gifts and express those fully, now that's when we come fully alive. And so I believe that is the missing piece that so many of the health journeys or the life journeys are missing. If you're doing therapy or a certain aspect, like looking only at the mental aspect or only physical aspect, if you're not looking and addressing all of these pieces as a whole, then you're missing a vital piece. And as we think about this as a circle, in the middle of that circle, the super missing piece that we just haven't cultivated in the United States especially, is this aspect, the seedling of self-love and an unconditional love. I like to think of being able to love myself the same way that God would love me, which is unconditional, which is beyond what we can individually imagine. A love so deep and unconditional and just loving, so present. And in this moment, the unabiding source of all that is in our life. But we're here, that's the ultimate grounding. And when we talk about vitality or energy, like it's the unending source of vitality and life force energy to pulse through us. There's a great quote by Rumi. He says, our task is not to seek for love. Our task is to seek that within ourselves, the barriers we've created against it. And I believe that to be so rich and so vitally true, that ultimately, if you can acknowledge that universal truth, that love, that health, vitality, abundance, that is your birthright. That is what we are here to express. We are co-creators with the big divine intelligence in the sky and the cosmos and beyond. And if as us as a creator, when we're in sync with that, recognizing how amazing you are powerful, you're amazing, you are unique, you're like a miracle. The chance of us even being alive right now at the space and time, like the chances are astronomical, and you are here. We're all here by divine design. And for us to plug into that fullness, that's what brings us fully alive. And again, I like the tagline we chose for this, of living the magic that is you. So what is that magic? What is that magic? And is there anything keeping you from expressing that fully? To me, the fear and doubt that's out there right now is something that's true and real, and that oftentimes is a block. So how can we go in, recognize the blocks within ourselves, love that back to the wholeness, so that that wave of energy is free to express in and through and as us once again? So that, in a nutshell, is the vitality code. And then the secret. I'd love for you ladies to chime in, because again, we've all come from such different backgrounds, and to the same sense of this awareness and truth that is available to us now.
I'll jump in because I was fascinated listening to you, Kathy. The whole idea of holistic, right? The huge, every aspect of what makes us human. The fact that we can get to self-love is huge. We're not taught these things. We're constantly, life has these transitions and they're difficult. I have a teenage boy right now was super secure of himself. And now he's going through all of these doubts and all of this finding his identity, right? And we look at how humanity, how we compare to others, how we compare to ideals of beauty that we've made up as society that have nothing to do with the truth of who we are. And when we can come to that inner truth, that inner love, accept myself with the good, the bad, the pretty, the ugly, and see myself as whole, perfect, and complete, just as I am, and a work in progress at the same time, right? So if we can get to that place, I remember my master teacher, and she was one of the most beautiful, amazing, elevated human beings I've ever had the experience to share time with. Her work was all about going into the heart and expanding your awareness and expanding your capacity to love yourself. And in the measure in which we do that, right, we're loving everything and everyone, because it's all oneness. It's all connected. And that vitality, I'd get out of those meditations and I'd be like, wow. Like, oh my God, it was the greatest, most amazing feeling in the world. My body would heal. I would walk in there with a headache, and maybe the headache was gone. If I had a cold, within the day or 24 hours, my cold symptoms were leaving. There's something that happens magically in that vibration, in that healing space of opening your heart, loving yourself, receiving the love and the abundance that we are, raising that vibration to that area. It heals everything. And so it's such an amazing journey to really just stop and look at how can I love myself a little bit more today? And what can I do to support that love of myself? Whether it's turn off the TV because I've been binge watching and it's 2 o'clock in the morning, or whether it's eating those healthy grains or healthy veggies, or can I go for that walk today? There's so many ways, and they're all a part of that loving.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm gonna jump in, I guess.
Go girl.
It's so true, because that's where you factor came from, which is my business, and it's getting to know you. I didn't know me. I knew everybody else. I knew what my kids needed, my husband needed, my mother needed. I knew what my father needed. I took him in a nursing home. I knew what everybody needed. And then when I was asked, what makes you happy? I had no idea.
Mhm.
So you talking about this, so like right up my alley. And energy work and dealing with the energy that I was dealing with of not knowing who I am. We don't even realize what's happening to us when we put everyone else first, and the energy blocks that we create. And going through that process was definitely healing for me. Everything that I do now, I started for myself. So becoming a holistic coach, I was tired of yo-yo dieting. So I went to integrated, what was it, health? I forget the school.
It's so funny. We learn something more about each other every
Right,
class.
but that's how I started the journey, was saying I'm tired of my weight fluctuating. I'm tired of just me being tired of me, is what I'll say. And
Yeah.
learning me on that journey, on this journey. I'm still learning me every day.
And I love that, because it's an ever evolving process. You know, like Claudia said, we're whole right now and ever evolving into that. But it's almost like a life stage, a coming of age, if you will, that we get that point in time where it's great to be able to caretake for others and to give. But if we're doing it at the expense of ourselves because we haven't been equally receiving, and it can be such a simple shift, just a simple awareness of, are you caretaking for yourself the way you do for others? And we're just not taught that. Like, I didn't even know how to have my own voice about things. I'll never forget when I got divorced, and I'm like, now who's going to tell me what to think? And I'm like, oh, maybe I can. Like, shocker, right? But yeah, such a beautiful thing. And that space that we yearn for is one of contentment and peace and calm, and the awareness of ourselves as co-creator. And I believe that comes when we reconcile all the past, then the crash and burns, a lot of that programming that came from our childhood days that told us messages that we weren't told, that we weren't enough, that we weren't lovable, that we weren't worthy or deserving, or maybe the world wasn't safe. So yeah, I love that, Carol. I'd love your perspective, because you're catching these kids that are struggling with this on this early part of their journey.
Yeah, when you were talking about vitality, it what came to me was that vitality equals love, and that is the center of who we actually are. Now, that's only hearsay until you directly experience that, right?
Love that.
And but how does one get there? How does one feel that, not just once in a while, but on a more permanent basis, on a more consistent basis? We all have things that are going to be coming up in our lives that might throw us a bit, but how do we get back to that center, that vitality, that love, at a higher velocity? And what that entails, based on my own journey and experiences, that we have to accept and be where we are in any given moment, and to recognize where we are and acknowledge it and allow it to be, rather than forcing it away or denying it or avoiding it. The more we accept and be where we are now, the more we get to and be that vitality. A lot of people oftentimes are wanting to be there, or I need to get there. I have to be there. And it's always about being there versus being where we are right here, right now. And the more that we can begin to accept everything about ourselves right here, right now, the more we can begin to tap into that vitality. Because in present time, there is no sickness, there is no disease, there is no good, bad, right, wrong, or all the other dualities that we live our lives through. It's just that center of being, and it can allow us to feel that wholeness.
And that's because I'm see every level. I love this.
Yeah.
Because it is that catching yourself and this is where I am right now, where I'm catching myself when I'm going into the future. No, bring yourself back here. How do you feel now? I am happy. I am, and telling myself that, because if I think about the bill that might be due that I don't see the money in the account for, that doesn't make me happy. But why am I that far ahead? Right now, I am very happy. So staying in that now moment, Carol, is definitely a learning process, or even going back to, they did this to me or that happened to me. But just staying right there in that now, it's definitely a journey. That's part of the journey, because our minds take us so many different places, and being aware and conscious of that shift, when your mind shifts to that thought and you're like, but no, right now I feel great. Right now I feel magnificent. Why do we take ourselves there?
Yeah. And even if you don't feel great, allow that to be, because the quicker that we acknowledge exactly where we are, no matter whether it's happy or sad or anger or exuberant, as long as we acknowledge it right there in the moment, shift happens immediately.
That's where I was going to jump in, because this reminds me a lot, of course, of Eckhart Tolle's The Power of Now, which is a phenomenal book. If you're not familiar with it, we highly recommend it. But it's precisely that. It's acknowledging where you are. Sometimes all the worry about the future is, in a way, I heard somebody say this and I thought it was brilliant. It's daydreaming in the negative. So why are you going to project something that hasn't happened yet, that you can shift and doesn't have to happen? So why create that worry? And then in the past, right? It's done. It's complete. It's finished. So there's nothing that you can do to change what already happened. So right now, whether I'm feeling happy or sad or miserable, if I can acknowledge whatever it is that I'm feeling, then there's a certain shift that starts to happen, like what Carol was saying. There's an acknowledgement and there's an acceptance and there's a surrender. And if I can experience that misery for a moment and allow myself to cry it out and release it, my body will shift. Then I can start coming out of it again and raise my vibration again and start loving and accepting myself. That automatically will change the vibration of whatever I'm feeling that's keeping me down. And the same thing happens with the love. If I'm okay, I can just acknowledge, you know what? I have a roof over my head. I've got clothes on my body. I'm better than a lot of the population on the planet. Let me just be accepting and loving of the fact that right now, right here, I am okay. There are these things in my worry, and tomorrow's tomorrow. What can I do about it right now? And one of the greatest things that I thought was a huge gift that someone gave to me once, they said, you will receive from life in the measure in which you're willing to love yourself. And I found that to be one of the most powerful teachings I've ever experienced. It keeps showing up in ways, and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm not loving myself right now. Okay. Time to shift that.
And that's a major shift,
Mhm.
It's a major shift because it's taking responsibility for you.
Yeah.
Instead of blaming and judging and everybody else did this to me. So that's definitely a major shift, I feel.
And it's funny, when I first ran across the notion, it was actually when I was getting certified for my holistic wellness in the center, is that self-love. And I was like, oh, what does self-love have to do with it? And I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
wait, it has everything to do with it. And then I was like, well, do I love myself or do I not? It's such a foreign concept in our society that I had to go on an inner exploration of what does it mean to me? So I went on a 30-day blogging, like journaling challenge for myself, and it deepened. It's interesting how it kind of cracked open my heart around day 11 of what that really meant to me. And I wasn't to a point where I could like make an affirmation of I love myself, where I'm forcing some foreign concept upon my mentality somehow. I had to lean in with a curiosity of what would it mean? Like, what would it feel like to know what it means to love myself? So it began as baby steps. It's an exploration that we all get to go deeper into. And like Carol, I like how you said that we don't always do it perfectly, which reminds me of like a yoga practice. It's like you show up and do your best that day. And some days you can lean into it further than others, but it's just how quickly we're able to come back to that open center where it's flowing freely. And I love how you said vitality is love. I love that.
Yeah, what you were saying about these experiences that you had and day 11, we can have these amazing peak experiences, but that is actually the beginning of the work, the beginning of opening up, and it's the integration process that begins after that. How do I live that?
Right.
What do I do to be able to live that? That's the next question, right? How do I integrate this into my livingness every single day? And that's where the journey begins. These
Mhm.
peak experiences that we have are momentous,
Mhm.
but if we don't begin to apply and implement, then they just become wonderful experiences and memories,
Yeah.
right?
And like
And
you're
if
saying,
we can do it. Go
sorry,
ahead.
sorry, that's where the deep work begins. It's then being in that state as long as possible, as often as possible, in that deep work and acknowledgement and connection with your wholeness. You're aligning your mission, your vision, your purpose with your heart, with how you go about the world, with how you see everyone else as connected, as a part of you, as the oneness that you are. And it's becoming, I think, that vitality for me is that shift in mindset that then becomes the way you see the world and experience the world every day. And maintaining that, to me, that's deep work. That's the greatest gift that my master teacher gave me, was how do we do this every day? How do we see the divine in everything? How do we see everything manifesting, the love in everything?
And then the other aspect of that is creating who you choose to be. So what are your top values? What do you stand for? What change would you like to see in the world? What are those emotions that you want to express today? For me, my life number is 3. It's joy. Like I'm always looking for joy each and every day. So that can be little experiences. So for me, oneness and joy and connection and unity, those are some of my top values. And I seek, the more we express those essence words of who we are, the more they pulse through our being and bring that vital life energy to us. When you're in that regularly, that dis-ease doesn't show up in the body, it just, we're at ease, we're finding there's always that present moment. Like you said, within me, there is that space that is peaceful and calm and all-knowing and resourceful and connected. So it's like, sweetness.
Yeah, it's the key is finding that space. It's really being able to look at yourself, to understand what are my core values? For me, I didn't even know what my core values were, so to live that every day, how could I live it if I didn't know it?
Yeah.
So that's a question that people can ask themselves. Like, what are my core values? Because some people don't even have an idea. We're honestly programmed, like I always say, to think a certain way and it should be this. And like some people say, I like honesty. Most people can't tell themselves the truth. How do I expect you to tell me the truth? That's not one of my core values. You understand? So I think one of the best things is to figure out what your core values are so you can live them every day. Because that's not common, is what I'll say.
Yeah.
Huge. I want to drop a nugget in there for a moment, if I may. There's a phenomenal value determination experience online with John DeMartini. I don't know if you ladies are familiar, but he wrote a book called The Breakthrough Experience, and he has this process. It's a workshop. It's phenomenal. And he has for free the value determination exercise. And it's a phenomenal place to start if you're interested in doing that.
Yeah. That's excellent.
Mm-hmm. Whenever everybody's ready.
Yeah. Carol, I'd be curious to know, because I know that you're working more and more with these 20-year-olds, like what's the conversation there for them?
I think that what's happening is that they are very high achieving and they've taken on sometimes more responsibility than they've really needed to. And they are also not wanting to disappoint.
Mm-hmm.
And they are worried about the world at large.
Mm-hmm.
They're also in a place of not feeling like they control that they can control the outcome of everything. I mean, none of us can. Some of us at any age worry about that anyway. But they have a multitude of feeling like they have the world on their shoulders and it's for them to fix.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's in their own personal life or out in the world. And they don't have the tools yet to be able to do that and to just be able to take responsibility for themselves. Because when we take responsibility for ourselves first, then we can begin to recognize that each and every one of us has our own responsibility in life. We can't take responsibility for another.
Yeah.
And what they do and what they say. We have to take responsibility only for what we do and what we say in ourselves. And so some of that responsibility needs to be lifted off their shoulders, and they have to be aware of what that looks like for them. So I help them work through all of that.
Yeah. And it's huge, I think. And it kind of draws back to some of our episodes that we've talked, the one that you hosted in particular is, fleshing out the isness of things, like how much of the story that we're telling ourselves, I'm responsible for all this, or, I've got to take care of everyone else before I can take care of me. It's like fleshing out those stories. Which ones are true? Like, what if none of them are true? And you get to pick and choose, starting from this moment in time now, this present time, which ones are you planning to move forward with? And to me, like when we can get a vision of what it is that we want to be, when we're fully expressed and in the flow and the abundance is there, we're making the change that we came here to be, get that sense of purpose when we're living into our purpose. And again, I think purpose, that whole notion of purpose is something that we're missing here, but we're also feeling like we're lacking it somehow. And I believe we are always in our purpose and we're just not necessarily recognizing what it is. I think purpose can change over time, but get a sense of like when you're fully lit up and you're living that life of passion and purpose, what does that look like? And bring those elements, get super clear on what those values are you're bringing. How do you interact with people? Because we're all different. We all have those different gifts. What are your gifts that are being fully expressed? And when you're in that flow, like bring that energetic line back into this. It's like a lifeline, just plug into that vision of who you choose to be, not in a worrisome, like I'll be there when kind of a thing, but of a, like, this is who I'm on the way of becoming. And that's a seed that's already within you, that's growing. And when you give light to it, begin to journal it or begin to speak it out with one another, like we do here, that's when it begins to take on life. And when you recognize yourself to be the co-creator of all that's happening, like you said, Carol, in right perspective of what is reasonably yours to do, not taking on too much. I think so many, especially women in particular, that's the kind of work I do is with women. We take on so much more and we're carrying it. We forget to put it down. It's like, okay, we take it on because we're strong and capable and we can, but it's like we get to arrive at that day when we decide, I can put this aside and begin to put myself first in a way that I'm fueling myself to continue to do the good that I love to do for others and to make a change for ourselves in the world. But super important for us to recognize we've got that choice and it can happen right now. Start it today.
I love
that. Yeah, I do too. Absolutely. And it's really a choice, as you said, definitely a choice to move forward. And sometimes the choices aren't always easy. That's when you choose you, those life choices can be a little difficult. And making it for yourself is, sometimes people don't honor it the way you need it to be. So being able to go through those changes, just like Carol said, working with these young adults, their parents sometimes don't understand their choices. And I know with young adults, as I have two. And what I love about my journey is that I'm able to look at them and say, they're going to make their choices. I'm just here to guide them. It's nothing else. I'm not here to tell them anything anymore. I've raised two young men. I'm just here to guide them. So when they call and they are going through these life changes, I don't put the pressure on them, where some parents do. You need to be this way. You have to go to college. So it becomes not their choice anymore. And when they decide, I don't want to go to college, the ridicule or not being honored for that being their choice. So sometimes being who you are is difficult because of the people around you. So being able to honor yourself and your choice and knowing that your choice is the best for your greatest and highest good is something that we all have to learn to stand in, because society has really taught us to do it for everybody else. So when you start taking, those things back, sometimes it is difficult because you'll disappoint the people around you. It's inevitable when you start pulling yourself back. People around you aren't necessarily cheering you on for that. So.
They like when you're giving to them. Don't stop.
Yeah.
So that can be hard. Be hard.
And like you said, sometimes when we move forward, we've got to let go of stuff. And so it's hard to let go because we know what it is that we're letting go of. And so sometimes we stay in relationships or situations longer than we should. Anybody other than me do that? And it's like, because we know what we're going to like missing, but we can't yet see what the good that's going to come in replace of that. So if you got like the energy vampire friends, or people that are just, you know, a little naysayers that you recognize are pulling you down, sometimes as you begin to distance yourself like that, like you're saying, they're going to want to pull you back. But it's like, no, when you open up that space and you got 5 new friends who come in that are also on that journey to consciously create who they choose to be in the world, like, it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing.
Kathy, I love something that you just said that I'd love to jump on, because it's so powerful. Sometimes we hold on to things too long and too tight because we're afraid of letting go. I have this great little, it's a butterfly that has a string. She's trying to fly and it's tied to a rock and it says, and it's by my mirror every morning. I get to see it precisely because there's just in the way, right? For us to be able to shed our skin and keep growing, there's stuff that's in the way, and it's just baggage that's holding us back from being the next greatest version of ourselves, whatever that looks like, that whatever that progress is for you, right? And one of the things I'm going to share, one of my little secrets. One of the things that I really love to do with coaching is something called Ikigai. And to me, it's one of the keys to vitality. And if you haven't heard about it, it's a Japanese version of finding your sweet spot. So I never really actually shared this because this is like my little private thing. But I really find that it's so powerful that I want to share it here now. And it's about finding what you love to do, what you can be paid for, what you're really good at, and what the world needs. And it's another way of aligning that mission, vision, purpose, right? And when we are in that ikigai, in that sweet spot, our vitality soars. When we are living on purpose, when we are doing what we love, when we are being remunerated for it, there's something, I'm getting goosebumps throughout my body. That's how I feel about my coaching. I feel like I finally found it. and being able to have these conversations with you ladies, that's another part that fills me with vitality, because I feel like these nuggets, these conversations are a way of paying it forward, right? So that's what lights me up. That's what brings the joy and that vitality into my life, and why I'm so grateful for sharing the space with all of you, because it just feels like this is part of my purpose. This is what makes me feel full and love life. And I thank each and every one of you for sharing this space, because I really, really love you. And I really love being able to feel that vitality for myself and to share it. And I really wanted to share that for a moment.
Beautiful.
One of the things that, as you and Joanna were talking, I always think about Joseph Campbell and his Follow Your Bliss. And it's that exactly what we're all talking about, that one thing deep inside that's calling to be pursued, calling to be nourished, calling to be fulfilled, that nobody, nothing can quench. No, nothing and no one can subdue or dampen. And when we pay attention to that inner calling of who and what we are here to be and do, it takes a lot of courage, so much courage, to be able to break away from the norms of our family, our society, and the tribe, if you will, of our little cocoon that we have been brought up into, and the culture. To be able to pay attention to that, that calling, that seed that's in us, is the vitality of who we really are, right? And when we can pay attention to that and put blinders and earplugs in, that we listen only to that, we become truly who we really are, because that's what we live out of, that vitality, that center of who we truly are, that calling. and it is a calling. And when we don't pay attention to it, we suffer.
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes it's more than one. I mean, I remember music and dancing was my first love. My first passion was my first language. I wanted to be a dancer. There was nothing in the world that gave me greater joy. Then it was the acting, right? Then it was medicine. Well, first it was medicine for a little while. Then I went into the acting. And that was that greatest joy in creating and becoming and understanding another human being's psyche. So we go through sometimes phases in life where those callings can shift and change, sometimes not as often as mine, but you know, some more than others, but it's being able to honor those. And same thing with the spirituality and the coaching. I mean, these are passions, these are callings that for me are so deep. And it's the joy and the vitality of seeing that something that you shared with a client or help them clear something that was in the way of them achieving their ultimate goals, their ideal dreams, their health, their vitality, getting away from the status quo of what Carol was saying. It's hard sometimes, taking that courage to say, I'm not going to stay in what was expected of me or what was taught around me. I'm going to step out and be bold and say, this is what I believe, or this is what I want to create. It's huge and it's wonderful. So please do it. Go for it. All of it.
Yes.
Try
And I
all
think
of them.
there's a ability, our body's going to constantly regenerating. It's doing it every moment. We're breathing, there's cells regenerating. When we're plugged into that higher vibe, like I like to think we get to plug into a sense of agelessness. And a powerful question is to ask, how long do you want to live? How old would you like to be? And it's like, that's a challenging question, because immediately our mind can go to, at a certain age, you start to decline, and, disease and death are kind of the pathway. And it's like, who said that needed to be the path? Like, go ahead and design your departure too. Like, I know, I think I've invited you all to my 80th birthday party. We're going to be mountain biking and crazy colored shirts. So that's my 80th and 90, who's to say that we can't be vibrant until our dying day when we're worn out and say, slip away peacefully in our sleep. This whole decline story is one I'm opting out of. So vitality to me, because I choose every day to step into my purpose, don't always remember it every day. That's our practice that I love how we presence that in this conversation. Like, but when we live most dominantly from those things that bring us fully alive, we get to be fully alive in the way we show up and live our lives.
I love that opt out of declining.
Yeah.
That
is like huge. Thank you.
I didn't even think about that. So I'm opting out of that. What I did used to say is I opt out of menopause, meaning hot flashes and things like that. I opt out of that. So I said I will not have that. But I never thought about declining as I get older. So thank you for that, Kathy.
Yeah, and I want to acknowledge I opted out of menopause completely. I had some hot flashes and used essential oils, but again, our beliefs are constantly creating. I like how Vishen Lakhiani calls it BS, the belief systems we unconsciously inherited from the societies. Like, that doesn't sound like fun. I'm not doing that. Let me out. Choose it. Choose
vital 80-year-olds. We can make that choice, full of vitality. I love that. Yeah. It's true.
Because we're in our creatorship. Look, I mean, we all have that person in our mind that kind of is like that exception that lives so vibrantly alive at 80s or beyond. It's like, well, look at them. They're laughing, they're connected with others. They're probably, not taking life so seriously. They're doing something that brings them that satisfaction, that connection or contribution. So like plug into those elements, that essence of what they're being and say, I'm having that, plug into that.
Love it.
It- Absolutely. No, I love that. Out, out.
Or the other thing too is sometimes
silence,
a
ladies.
whole segment on out,
Oh, I don't
out.
mind the silent pauses. It gives us time to breathe and to contemplate and to really
Mhm.
arrive.
Taking
I
it
love
in.
it. There's opting out, and then there's also outdated beliefs too. So that outdated version that of me is I'm looking to step in and have a bigger impact in my business and in the world. It's like I've got belief systems I've been operating of, seeing myself as one who could only achieve so much. And we do that. It's almost like a self-imposed glass ceiling that we've been buying into for whatever reason from whoever. It doesn't matter who or where or why or how long. It's just like we were saying, the power of now, the power, does that still serve me? It's like, okay, well, where I'm going, that doesn't serve me anymore. I'm going to change that, elevate it, expand what I know to be possible for myself. And I'm living into that today because I choose it. And yeah, all the angels and whoever your guides are, they're it's going to be a lot more fun for them to play in that vibration than us just who said status quo. It's like we forget that we can choose more.
Yes. I second that motion. I'm in. So
From my experience, I wasn't aware of choice until I became aware of choice. My experience is that I was thrown to this, I was thrown to that. I was pushed and pulled from pillar to post. But once I became aware of something, that's the moment that I had choice. That's the moment that I could continue to indulge in the belief systems, or choose to acknowledge and see everything in that moment as it was, the truth of it, and live from that place.
I love the word that you used, indulge in it.
yeah.
Tell us more about that, because I think there's richness in that concept right there.
Yeah, we indulge in the story of things. When we get triggered, we spiral into the depths of the trigger. But when we become aware of the trigger, conscious of the trigger, what is actually getting triggered, then we can choose at that very moment consciously to indulge in it, continue to indulge in that spiral, or to stop it. Just cut it,
Mic drop moment, guys.
Exactly.
That's huge.
Very much so.
That alone will change your life.
Very much so. That was like the whole life change right there.
Right there.
You have to
Magic
do
nugget.
it.
How to change your life? This is it.
That's it.
And the cool part is people can go back to some of our previous shows and see how to unwind the stories, because we've talked about emotions, how we need to give ourselves the ability and permission to sit with, okay, I'm triggered. It's like, okay, where did that trigger even begin? Whose was that? 90% of the time, it wasn't ever even ours in the first place, but we took it on with a child's mind that couldn't discern anymore. But we're not children anymore. Like you said, it's like, just become aware of that. So make sure to look at some of our previous segments. There's some gold in there of how to unwind that stuff.
And I want to highlight something that you said to me, Kathy, that change happens at the speed of awareness.
Yeah.
That was magical for me, because I always thought, now that I'm aware, I got to work on it. It's going to be hard. I got to work on it, and I got to practice it day after day or something. And no, we can change that story. We can make a different choice. Change can happen in the speed of awareness. Like Carol just said, to me, what you just shared, Carol, is brilliant, because it's so true. You can be unconscious. All of these things can be happening unconscious, but the moment you're aware of it, going forward, you have a choice. And that's huge, people. That right there is freedom.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's exactly the word
That's
for it.
true freedom.
That's freedom. That is freedom.
And that's when the magic of you get to start choosing who you are and what stories, what belief systems you're going to buy next. I make up stories about myself all the time. Now they're positive stories, you know, and they're not the what ifs, you know, I crash and burn it, or I'm not good enough, or that stuff. What if, you know, that comparison-itis that can hold us back because we're so busy comparing out there. It's like, oh no, let's center again.
We're
think the
coming
best
down to our
comparison is-
last 5 minutes.
Ooh.
And so I was wondering, Claudia, would you like to share about what our next show is about, since you're
Yes.
going to start us off?
Okay, certainly. Before I do, I wanted to share one thing, which was last thought that I wanted to share, which is I think that the best and only comparison we should ever have, and then there's no shoulds, that may support us, is compare myself to my version of yesterday.
Yeah.
Is the version today a slightly better version, a slightly more aware version, a slightly more loving version? So that's the only comparison we need.
Amen.
And so going forward for our next show, I'd love to invite all of you to join us. We're going to be talking about the ancient art of feng shui and how to bring vitality into the space around us, vitality into our homes, what qi is, how qi energizes that life force energy, can highlight different things in our home and in our space, and how that applies to different aspects of our lives, right? So we can energize our spaces with all kinds of different things, from the things that we love, with crystals, with energy, with mantras, with prayers. There's so many different ways. And we're going to be exploring quite a few of those, learn a little bit about this ancient Chinese art, and then, of course, have a great conversation from all of our perspectives on how these things have affected our lives or brought knowledge and wonderful experiences so that we can share those with you.
Yay.
Yes.
So November
So-
20th, right?
Yes.
Sunday, November 20th at, well, I know 7 p.m. Eastern time.
Time and 4 p.m. Pacific. So we hope to see you all there, and thank you guys. Today has been, for me, a magical conversation. I think there's been just so much fun and so much vitality. Kathy,
I
you always
I
bring
just
so
want
much
to
joy.
point out how magical today was, that we all showed up in white. It was not planned.
It was
Green
not
and white.
planned. It was
It was
just a
not planned.
beautiful.
So that's just how magical we are.
Boom.
And look for the magic all around us, because it's showing up in so many different ways. And when we're conscious and thinking, looking for it, we'll receive more of it. So how much magic of you are you willing to receive today? Love that.
There's no coincidences. It's
Mhm.
all little magic happening for you.
Thank you, everyone. Hope you enjoy the show and listen to the replay. And we will see you on November 20th. Have a great rest of your Sunday.
Love and light.
Mm.
That was rich.